Alright, this is my individual progress update for sprints 3 and 4 for Notes GPT. So first, breakdown of labor. First thing I did with the settings UI, I designed the screen. We didn't end up using it because Eric made a better one, but I did design one. Didn't use it though. So choose language and settings. So in sprint 3, I got it to work where I could manually translate every string of text, and when the user selected a new language in a dialog box from settings, it would change all the strings of text, but I did have to manually translate it for every language. Um, so it took me a while to figure it out that way, but it does work that way. I do have to manually translate it all. Then I did the nav bar, like the hamburger drawer nav bar on the side. I spent a while figuring that out. I was able to get the UI to work, but I was never able to get the functionality to work for that. Yeah, I just couldn't figure it out. And then Sprint 4, I mainly focused on finishing settings, which was I tried to use the Google Cloud Translation API so that I don't have to manually translate every string. But I wasn't able to get that to work. I struggled through for probably 5 or 6 hours on one of the Saturdays during the sprint. I just couldn't get it to work. So I do have it working with manually translating the app. But yeah, I'm going to try to revisit the API in Sprint 5 and get that to work so I don't have to manually translate it. So first I'll demonstrate the old settings UI and the nav bar that we didn't use, but that I did. Then I'll show the language changing with that old UI and nav bar in that version of the app, and then I'll show it in the current app, which again is the manual translation. And then I'll show the edit profile, which allows the user to save their name and display it in settings instead of their email. All right. So over in VS Code, I have the old app. So this is the settings UI I made, as well as this nav bar that has all these options. Again, no functionality, but I designed the UI for that and designed the UI for the settings page. If we go to change language, you can select it from any of these three, Hindi, English, and Spanish. As you can see, it changes it. It's just, yeah, I'll show it in GitHub, but the code you have to manually translate every single string. And then we'll go ahead and I'm going to have to build the current version of the app, so that'll take a minute. Okay, so we're back with the current version of the app. I'm just going to navigate the settings. So if you create an account, you can see I didn't work on any of these features, but I have to navigate to get the settings. Alright, and then once you're in here, if you click on this person settings, so now we're going to look at the features I worked on. So first, change language, same exact thing as before, I just had to re-implement it in this app. Yeah, and it'll change it on the other screens too, and I'll show that. And then if we go to edit profile, it'll show this new screen. You type in your name, and then up here it'll say hello to that, and it'll save it if we go back in. And yeah, I'll probably add more things like change your email, maybe password, some other stuff in the next sprint, but that was just starting that. If we look back at change language, keeps the name you wrote, but and then if we sign out and go back to this page, you can see everything here is translated as well. So those are the main features I've been working on. And then if we go back to the slides, all right, we're going to look at GitHub. We're going to look at all my commits, and then we'll look at the new code. All right, so here on GitHub, I've got 3 main branches where I push code to. You can see March 20th, I pushed some stuff for the language, translated it in those 3 screens. Then if we go to navigation bar, this is stuff we're going to end up using, but you can see February 25th during the last sprint, I did push the UI, and some old change language stuff was in there too. And if we go to edit profile, this was after the sprint ended technically because I had to manually go through and deal with the conflicts, but I got the edit profile page up. Yeah, so those are my check-ins, and we'll go through the actual code now. Okay. So yeah, I had to change the Gradle, and then just had to add a couple things to main to get it to work. Um, this is the main thing. So this is all the translations that I had to do manually. It's in a separate Dart file. And it's just the translations for each language. And then I was just making stuff flexible so it would be responsive. And then same with that. So here's where I did a lot more. So I added this. This is a list of locales, like the different languages that are supported. This just updates it when you press a button. This is a dialog that basically pops up and says, here are your options for the language. You click on it, and you can see on tap, it prints it. That's just to the Flutter console, which doesn't need to be in there, or the VS Code terminal. And it updates the language with the locale that you click on. And then for each text, instead of typing like the actual string, you put some sort of like label, then .tr for translation, I believe, which is, so like that was settings.tr, so it'll find settings, then your current locale, and it'll pick that string and display that. So that's the main thing, and then I just went in and changed each string. And for sign up as well, change each string. Yeah, and then I had to add a couple dependencies to make it work. So I added localizations and international and generate. Okay, so I'll go back to the other branch. So we go to this nav bar from a while ago. Yeah, I was using, that was for the change language stuff. We'll go to settings, which is where I built it, I think. I don't know why it says I changed all of this. It looks the same to me. But go back up. Settings, you can see this is the main thing I did right here. Return the jar and the scaffold, and it'll list. And these are like the different things I did. And then when you tap one of them, it'll close the drawer. Yeah, and it's just an icon and text. I didn't get the functionality working yet, but yeah, that's mainly what I did for that. Alright, so here's my code for the edit profile page. So we have the class. It takes in a string of current name just so it has something as like the default. We create a state so that we can save the name to that. We can initialize the state. So when we're saving the name, and when we're in the process of saving it, it'll set the state to true so that we know we are, and then it'll set to false when it's done, and it'll show this message when it's done. This pop just passes it back to the settings screen. And here's the widget build, which is just the UI. We have the title, text field that'll allow you to put in your name, and then just a size box, a button that says save. Size box and the button. So then in the settings, we'll create a state there as well so that we can save the name. We'll have our user and our display name, initialize state so that they're not null. Update name, we'll set display name to the name that we got from the edit profile screen. And then down here, it'll show the display name instead of the email in the settings screen. And then when you tap it, it'll, this is just a navigation to the edit profile screen. It'll take you there and it'll pass the display name from settings as the current name so that it saves the name if you go back in there. And then if there's not a name, or if it's not null, you update it.